Section 2, Sutra 3. Avidya, asmitā, raga, dvesha, bhini, vesha, klesha. Avidya, asmitā, raga, dvesha, bhini, vesha, klesha. Ignorance, lack of awareness, illusion, I-amness, egoism, attraction, liking, repulsion, dislike, and clinging to life, fear of death, pains, afflictions, miseries, causes of pain. The lack of awareness of reality, the sense of egoism or I-amness, attractions and repulsions toward objects, and the strong desire for life are the great afflictions or causes of all miseries of life. The philosophy of Kleshas is really the foundation of the system of yoga outlined by Patanjali. So I have a whole section on Kleshas in my course, Quantum Creation. I go very deep into them. It is necessary to understand this philosophy thoroughly because it provides a satisfactory answer to the initial and pertinent question, why should we practice yoga? The philosophy of Kleshas is not peculiar. I'm really having a hard time distinguishing between those two words. Let me start again. Why should we practice yoga? The philosophy of Kleshas is not peculiar to the system of yoga. In its essential ideas, it forms the substratum of all schools in yoga in India, though perhaps it has not been expounded as clearly and systematically as in the Samkhya and Yoga darshanas. Many Western scholars have not fully understood the real significance of the philosophy of Kleshas and tend to regard it merely as an expression of the pessimism which they think characterizes Hindu philosophical thought. At best, they take it in the light of an ingenious philosophical conception which provides the necessary foundation for certain systems of philosophy. That it is related to the hard facts of existence and is based upon a close and scientific analysis of the phenomenon of human life, they would be hardly prepared to accept. Purely academic philosophy has always been speculative, and the essential task of the expounder of a new philosophical system is considered to be to provide a plausible explanation for the fundamental facts of life and existence. Some of these explanations, which form the basis of certain philosophical systems, are extraordinarily ingenious expositions and illustrations of reasoned thought, but they are purely speculative and are based on the superficial phenomenon of life observed through the senses. Philosophy is considered to be a breach of learning concerned with evolving theories about life and the universe. Oh, breach. Let me read that again. A breach of learning. That's great. Philosophy is considered to be a branch of learning concerned with evolving theories about life and the universe. Whether these theories are correct and help in solving the real problems of life is not the concern of the philosopher. He has only to see that the theory which he puts forward is intellectually sound and provides an explanation of the observed facts of life with the maximum of plausibility. Its value lies in its rationality and ingeniousness, and possibly intellectual brilliance, not in its capacity to provide a means of overcoming the miseries and sufferings incidental to human life. No wonder academic philosophy is considered barren and futile by the common man and treated with indifference, if not with veiled contempt. Now, in the East, though many ingenious and purely speculative philosophies have been expounded from time to time, philosophy has been considered, on the whole, as a means of expounding the real and deeper problems of human life and providing clear-cut and effective means for their solution. There is not much demand for purely speculative systems of philosophy, and such as exist are treated with a kind of amused tolerance as intellectual curiosities and nothing more. The great problem of human life is too urgent, too serious, too profound, too awful to leave any room for the consideration of mere intellectual theories, however brilliant these might be. If your house is on fire, you want a means of escape and are not in a mood to sit down and read a brilliant thesis on architecture at that time. Those who can remain satisfied with purely speculative philosophies have not really understood the great and urgent problem of human life and its deeper significance. If they see this problem as it really is, then they can be interested only in such philosophies as offer effective means for its solution. Although the perception of the inner significance of the real problem of human life is dependent upon an inner change in consciousness and awakening of our spiritual faculties, and cannot be brought about by an intellectual process of reasoning imposed from without, still, let us consider man in time and space and see whether his circumstances justify the extraordinary complacency which we find not only among the common people, but also among the so-called philosophers. Let us first consider man in space. In giving us a true picture of man in the physical universe, of which he is a part, nothing has helped us so much as the discoveries of modern science. Even before man could use a telescope, the vision of the sky at night filled him with awe and wonder at the immensity of the universe, of which he was an insignificant part. But the research of astronomers have shown that the physical universe is almost unbelievably larger than what it appears to the naked eye. The 6,000 stars that are within the range of our unaided vision form, according to science, a group which is only one among at least 1 billion other groups, which stretch out to infinity in every direction. Astronomers have made a rough calculation of the number of stars that are within the range of the high-powered telescopes available these days, and think there may be as many as 100 billion stars in our galaxy alone, some smaller than our sun and others very much bigger. This galaxy, which is only one of 100,000 already definitely known to astronomers, that number's changed. This was written back in the 60s, right? Already definitely known to astronomers, is so vast that light with a speed of 186,000 miles per second takes about 100,000 years to travel from one side to the other. In this vast known universe, even our solar system, with its maximum orbital of planets, diameter of 7 billion miles, occupies an insignificant place by comparison. Narrowing down our vision to the solar system, we again find that the Earth occupies only an insignificant place in the huge distances that are involved. It has a diameter of 8,000 miles compared with 865,000 miles of the Sun, and moves slowly in its orbit around the Sun at an approximate distance of 93 million miles. Coming down still further to our Earth, we find man occupying an insignificant position as far as his physical body is considered. A microbe moving over the surface of a big school globe is physically a formidable object in comparison with man moving over the surface of the Earth. This is the awful picture that science gives of man in the physical universe, but so great is the illusion of Maya and the complacence which it engenders, that we not only do not wonder about human life and tremble at our destiny, but go through life engrossed in our petty pursuits, and sometimes even obsessed with a sense of self-importance. Even the scientists who scan this vast universe every night with their telescopes remains unaware of the profound significance of what they see. The picture which science presents of our physical world in its infinitesimal aspect is no less disconcerting. That physical matter constituting our bodies, consisted of atoms and molecules, has been known for quite a long time. But the recent researches of science in this field have led to some startling discoveries. The hard and indestructible atoms which constituted the bedrock of modern scientific materialism, have been found to be nothing more than different permutations and combinations of two fundamental types of positive and negative charged particles, protons and electrons. The protons form the core of the atom, with electrons in varying numbers revolving around it in different orbits with tremendous speed, an atom being thus a solar system in miniature. And what is still more startling, it has been found, that these electrons may be nothing but charges of electricity with no material basis, because mass and energy become indistinguishable at the high speed at which electrons move in their orbits. In fact, the conversion of matter into energy, which has now become an accomplished fact, shows that matter may be nothing more than an expression of locked up energy. This conclusion, which really means that matter disappears into energy, has been arrived at by an irony of fate, by the efforts of materialistic science, which was responsible for giving a tremendous materialistic basis to our thinking and living. So this is interesting, that matter disappears into energy. I was watching a show the other day that was talking about the rainbow light body, and how, they were talking about the pharaohs in the king's tomb and them disappearing or using it as a chamber to travel to other locations. And then it was also talking about all the images of Jesus with the rainbow light surrounding his head and the resurrection, and then Tibetan Buddhists, how they knew about their time of death, and they would be sealed in a room and they would go into that final rainbow light body state that you can't return from, right? When they would leave their bodies, and they would just leave like their clothes and their hair and their nails behind, and everything else would be disappeared. So it's interesting to think about that. And then also when we think about extra-dimensional life, right? How do they travel such great distances? Well, they revert from the physical to the energetic, right? Or to the electric. And that's how they move through space. So it makes a lot of sense what he's saying. It's so nice that the light has changed, because it's easier for me to read now. I was having a hard time actually seeing the page. Okay. This conclusion, which really means that matter disappears into energy, has been arrived at by an irony of fate, by the efforts of materialistic science, which was responsible for giving a tremendous materialistic bias to our thinking and living. This hard fact means, and let the reader ponder carefully over this problem, that the well-known and so-called real world, which we cognize with our sense organs, a world of forms, color, sound, etc., is based upon a phantom world containing nothing more than protons and electrons. These facts have become matters of common knowledge, but how many of us, even scientists who work on these problems, seem to grasp the significance of these facts? How many are led to ask the question, which should so naturally arise in light of these facts: what is man? Is there any further proof needed that the mere intellect is blind and is incapable of seeing even the obvious truths of life, much less the truth of truths? Let me read that again, because that's a good question. Is there any further proof needed that the mere intellect is blind and is incapable of seeing even the obvious truths of life, much less the truth of truths? The big truth. The truth behind the truths. Leaving the world of space, let us glance for a while at the world of time. Here again, we are faced with tremendous immensities of a different nature. An infinite succession of changes seems to extend on both sides into the past and the future. Of this endless expanse of time, a period of a few thousand years just behind us is all that is reliably known to us, while we have only a vague and hazy conception of what lies in the lap of the uncertain future. For aught we know, the sun may explode the very next moment and destroy all life in the solar system before we know what has happened. We are almost certain that millions and millions of years lie behind us, but what has happened in those years we cannot know, except by inference from what we observe in the visible universe of stars around us. The past is like a huge tidal wave advancing and devouring everything in its path. Magnificent civilizations on our Earth of which only traces are left, and even planets and solar systems have disappeared in this tidal wave, never to appear again. And a similar relentless fate awaits everything from a grain of dust to a solar system. Time, the instrument of the great illusion, devours everything. And yet, look at puny man, whose achievements and glories are also to disappear in this void. How he struts about on the world stage, clothed with brief authority or glory in the few moments which has been allotted to him. Surely this awful panorama of ceaseless change, which is unfolding before his eyes, should make him pause and at least wonder, what is all this about? But does it? The above picture of man in time and space is not at all overdrawn. A man has only to isolate himself for a while from his engrossing environment and ponder over these facts of life to realize the illusory nature of his life and to feel the so-called zest of life melt away. But few of us have the eyes to look at this awful vision, and if by any chance our eyes open accidentally for a while, we find the prospect too terrifying and shut them again, and completely oblivious and unaware of the real nature of life, continue to live with our joys and sorrows until the flame of life is snuffed out by the hand of death. Now, the above picture of man in space and time has been given not with a view to provide entertainment for the intellectually curious or even food for thought for the thoughtful, but to prepare the ground for the consideration of the philosophy of Kleshas, which forms the foundation of the yogic philosophy. For the philosophy of yoga is based on the hard realities of life, harder than the realities of nature given to us by science. Those who are not aware of these realities, or are aware only superficially in their intellectual aspects, can hardly appreciate the goal or the technique of yoga. They may find yoga a very interesting subject for study, even fascinating in some of its aspects, but they cannot have the determination to go through the tremendous labor and ordeals which are required to rend asunder the veils of illusion created by time and space, and to contact the reality, with a capital R, which is hidden behind these veils. With this brief introduction, let us now turn to consider the philosophy of Kleshas, as it is outlined in the Yoga Sutras. Let us first take the Sanskrit word klesha. It means pain, affliction, or misery, but gradually it came to acquire the meaning of what causes pain, affliction, or misery. The philosophy of Kleshas is thus an analysis of the underlying and fundamental cause of human misery and suffering, and the way in which this cause can be removed effectively. This analysis is not based upon a consideration of the superficial facts of life as observed through the senses. The rishis who expounded this philosophy were great adepts who combined in themselves the qualifications of a religious teacher, scientist, and philosopher. With this triple qualification and synthetic vision, they attacked the great problem of life, determined to find a solution of the riddle which time and space have created for the illusion-bound man. They observed the phenomenon of life not only with the help of their senses and the mind, but in the full conviction that the solution lay beyond even the intellect. They dived deeper and deeper into their own consciousness, tearing aside veil after veil until they discovered the ultimate cause of the great illusion and the misery and suffering which are its inevitable result. They discovered incidentally in their search other subtler worlds of entrancing beauty hidden beneath the visible physical world. They discovered new faculties and powers within themselves, faculties and powers which could be utilized for studying these subtler worlds and pursuing their inquiry into still deeper layers of their own consciousness. But they did not allow themselves to be entangled by these subtler worlds, and did not rest content until they had penetrated deep enough within their consciousness to find an effective and permanent solution of the great problem of life. They discovered in this way not only the ultimate cause of human misery and suffering, but also the only effective means of destroying these afflictions permanently. It is very necessary for the student to realize the experimental nature of this philosophy of Kleshas and the greater philosophy of yoga, of which it is an integral part. These are not the results of speculation or reasoned thought, as many systems of philosophy are. The philosophy of yoga claims to be derived from the results of scientific experiments, guided by the spirit of philosophic inquiry, inspired by religious devotion. We cannot obviously verify this essentially scientific system by the ordinary methods of science and say to the skeptic, "Come, I will prove it before your eyes." We cannot judge it by the ordinary academic standards of philosophers who apply purely intellectual criteria for judging these things. The only way in which it can be verified is to follow the path which was taken by the original discoverers and which is outlined in this system of yoga. The only way in which it can be verified is to follow the path which was taken by the original discoverers and which is outlined in this system of yoga. The skeptic might feel that it is unfair to ask him to assume the validity of what he wants to get proved, but this, from the very nature of things, cannot be helped. Those who have seen the fundamental problem of life in its true aspects will consider the gamble worth taking, for that proves the only way out of the great illusion. For others, it does not matter whether they do or do not believe in the teachings of yoga. They are not yet ready for the divine adventure. Before discussing in detail the philosophy of Kleshas as outlined in section 2 of the Yoga Sutras, it will be desirable to give an analysis of the whole subject in the form of a table. This will show at a glance the different aspects of the subject and their relation to one another. It will be seen from the summary given in this table, a fact which is difficult to grasp otherwise, that the whole subject has been dealt with in a systematic and masterly manner. The student who wants to get a clear insight into the philosophy of Kleshas will do well, therefore, to go through the following summary carefully and ponder over it before taking up the detailed study of the subject. So, I don't know if it's going to be, I think it's going to be on this side. I'll put the table up. Okay, philosophy of Kleshas, synopsis. Question dealt with. What are Kleshas? Enumeration and definitions in Sutras 3 through 9. How are they destroyed? General methods of destroying them, Sutras 10 and 11. Why should Kleshas be destroyed? They involve us in a never-ending cycle of births and deaths and miseries of life, dealt with in Sutras 12 through 15. Can their result, miseries of life, be destroyed? Yes, those that are still in the future, Sutra 16. What is the fundamental cause of these miseries? Union and identification of the knower with the known, and that's dealt with in Sutra 17. What is the nature of the known? Interactions of bhutas, indriyas, and gunas, which result in experience and liberation, dealt with in Sutras 18 and 19. What is the nature of the knower? The knower is pure consciousness, Sutras 20 through 22. Why have the knower and the known been brought together? Yes. For the evolution of powers of Prakriti and for self-realization of the Purusha, Sutra 23. How have the known and knower been brought together? Through a veil of illusion caused by Avidya, or ignorance, Sutra 24. How can the known and knower be separated? By destroying the veil of Avidya, Sutra 25. How can this veil of Avidya be destroyed? By viveka, which leads to increasing awareness of his own nature by the Purusha in 7 stages. So viveka is discrimination. Discrimination. Or discernment. 26 and 27. How can viveka be developed? By the practice of yoga, Sutra 28. The author opens the subject with an enumeration of the 5 kleshas in Sutra 3. The English equivalents of the Sanskrit words do not correctly and fully convey the ideas implied, and the English words, which come nearest to the Sanskrit names of the kleshas, have been given. The underlying significance of the 5 kleshas will be explained in dealing with the subsequent sutras. The next sutra is number 4. Let me see how long it is. I might want to do that for I'll do number 4. Okay, that's the end of Sutra 3. Sutra 4. Avidyā kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinodaranam. Ignorance or lack of awareness of reality, field, source, of the following ones: of dormant, sleeping, attenuated, thin, scattered, dispersed, alternating, and expanding, fully operative. Sutra 4. Avidya is the source of those that are mentioned after it, whether they be in the dormant, attenuated, alternating, or expanding condition. This sutra gives 2 important facts concerning the nature of the kleshas. The first is their mutual relationship. Avidya is the root cause of the other 4 kleshas, which in their turn produce all the miseries of human life. A closer study of the nature of the other 4 kleshas will show not only that they can grow only on the soil of Avidya, but also that the 5 kleshas form a connected series of causes and effects. The relation existing between the 5 kleshas may be likened to the relation of root, trunk, branches, leaves, and fruit in a tree. The conclusion that the 5 kleshas are related to one another in this manner is further strengthened by section 2, Sutra 10, but we shall discuss this question in dealing with that sutra. The other idea in this sutra is the classification of the states or conditions in which these kleshas may exist. These 4 states are defined as 1. Dormant, 2. Attenuated, 3. Alternating, and 4. Expanded. The dormant condition is that in which the klesha is present, but in a latent form. It cannot find expression for lack of proper conditions for its expression, and its kinetic energy has become potential. It hasn't arisen yet, right? The attenuated condition is that in which the klesha is present in a very feeble or tenuous condition. It is not active, but can become active in a mild degree on a stimulus being applied. In the fully expanded condition, the klesha is fully operative, and its activity is all too apparent, like the waves on the surface of the sea in a storm. The alternating condition is that in which 2 opposite tendencies overpower each other alternately, as in the case of 2 lovers who sometimes become angry and affectionate alternately. The feelings of attraction and repulsion alternate, though fundamentally they are based on attachment. It is only in the case of the advanced yogis that the kleshas are present in the dormant form. In the case of ordinary people, the kleshas are present in the other 3 conditions depending upon external circumstances. Okay. Next is Sutra 5. We'll do that in the next video, but let me read it for you. Avidya is taking the non-eternal, impure, evil, and non-Atman to be eternal, pure good, and Atman, respectively. So it's being immersed in the illusion, right? Okay. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.